Lin Jing sat on the bluestone platform, holding a short blade that looked ordinary in his hand. There were several cracks on the blade's body, like a broken dumpling that would break at any time. He stared at this thing with his head down, his eyebrows so hard that he could suck his head. This short blade is called the Shadow-Breaking Blade, which is his natal magic treasure that was transformed during the 16th year of Elixir. It is logically the most considerate partner of the immortal cultivator. What is the result? Not only did this broken thing not help him, he also made him get stuck in the middle stage of the elixir, and he did not make any progress in 3 years. Chinger, are you still in a daze? An old voice came from a distance, with a touch of sarcasm. Lin Jing looked up and saw that it was his master, Qing Xian, wearing a gray-white Taoist robe, full of silver hair, and habitual and grinning on his face. He was walking towards him. Master, I'm not stupid, I'm worried. Lin Qing smiled bitterly and swayed the shadow blade. What is this thing? Other people's natal magic treasures can either cross mountains and seas or exhale wind and rain. Why did I become a wasteland like me? It also made me stop practicing, and even the trial of the sect can't survive. Qing Dianzhenren walked to him and glanced at the short blade, with a complex look that was difficult to detect in his eyes. He patted Lin Jing on the shoulder with a calm voice in his language. The Dharma treasure is a matter of incisiveness. Since you have chosen you, there is always a reason for this shadow blade. In the path of cultivation of immortality, you should not be eager to achieve success. You should try your best to do whatever you want. With the effort? Lin Jing curled his lips, and there was no confidence in his heart. Tomorrow is the triennial trial competition of the Xuanming. As one of the few young people in Qingyun's sect, he was originally a popular choice for the champion, but now he has been repaired as a slack shell, and even his fellow disciples have begun to look at him with different eyes, and secretly argued that he was a genius. He couldn't swallow this breath. The real person Qing Xian seemed to see through his thoughts, smiled, and said with a high focus, Cultivating immortals is not only about cultivating strength, but also about cultivating the mind. Although the place where the sect chooses disciples, it may be a trick for you to come. Go, don't let yourself regret it. Lin Jing pointed at the head. Although he didn't say anything, he made up his mind secretly. No matter what, he had to try this time. At least he proved that he was not a waste. The next morning, the Qingyun sect's trial scene was as hot as the new year. Hundreds of disciples gathered in the valley, ready to show off their skills in the trial. The place for this trial was a small secret cave realm on the back mountain of Qingyun sect. It was said to be a trial place left by ancient immortals. There were many weapons hidden in it, but it was also full of dangers. Every year, disciples were broken in it. Lin Jing stood in the crowd, wearing a uniform blue Taoist robe and holding a shadow blade in his hand. Although this magic treasure was not good, it was his only trump card at least. Several fellow disciples from the same door saw him and couldn't help but chant, "Yeah, isn't this Mr. Lin? I heard that he has not made any progress in his cultivation for 3 years. Isn't this time going to drag his legs? Who knows that he was the most optimistic genius in the sect that year? Now, I guess he can't even enter the top 10. Although these words lowered the sound, every word and sentence still drew into Lin Jing's ears. He bit his teeth tightly, and his eyes were a little cold when he didn't hear it. I thought to myself, laugh, wait until the trial is over, see who will laugh to the end. The trial officially began, and the elders opened up the method of entering the secret realm of Cave Heaven. A light door appeared in the middle of the valley, emitting faint blue light. The disciples came in with fish, and Lin Jing followed the crowd into the door of light, feeling a dizzy turn. The next moment, he was already stepping on the strange land under his feet. The secret realm of Cave Heaven is not big, but the spirit is so heavy that it makes people feel energetic. It is surrounded by dense ancient forests, with mountains standing far away, and you can hear the sound of the stream flowing. However, the atmosphere here is filled with indescribable slightness, and there is a sense of urgency in the air, which makes people unable to help but feel nervous. According to the test rules, disciples need to find designated spirit grass and demon beast inner pills in the secret realm to obtain sufficient points before they can pass the assessment. Lin Jing didn't rush to move, so he first found a hidden corner plate and sat down, and closed his eyes and felt the flow of spirit around him. Although his cultivation was stopped, his divine consciousness was unusual and sensitive, which was his only progress in the past few years. At this moment, the shadow blade in his hand suddenly moved slightly, as if it was being attracted by something. Lin Jing was stunned, looked down at the broken magic treasure, muttering in his heart, "What's going on? Can this thing still move by itself?" The kid became more and more obvious, and even took his hand to tilt in a certain direction. Lin Jing hesitated for a moment, and decided to walk around with this feeling. Anyway, the trial was still long, so he might have some collision. He walked through the dense forest, avoided a few low-level demons, and after about half a minute, he finally arrived at a secret valley. There is a broken stone platform in the middle of the valley, with incomprehensible ancient runes engraved on the table, emitting a faint light. The shadow blade's sensation reached its peak at this moment and almost wiped out from his hands. This place is a little uneven. Lin Jing's eyebrows were awkward, holding the short blade, and approaching the stone platform carefully. The moment he stepped onto the stone platform, the shadow blade suddenly burst out with a dazzling light, and the cracks on the blade seemed to be filled with some force, and instantly became complete and leisurely. At the same time, the runes on the stone platform also lit up, and a strong suction force was transmitted from the table. Lin Jing could only feel that his feet were empty, and the whole person was sucked into a pitch-black space. When he came back to his senses, he realized that he was standing in a completely unfamiliar place. This place looks like another secret realm of the cave. The sky is filled with a strong and almost inexhaustible spirit. There is a colorful ray of light flowing from the sky far away. Under the feet is a floating stone road leading to a huge palace floating in the air. Where is this? Lin Jing swallowed, his heart shocked and uneasy. He looked down at the shadow blade and found that the magic treasure was emitting a faint light at this moment, as if it had produced some kind of co-bearing with this space. He tried to urge the spirit and found that the spirit here could be absorbed directly by him. The originally stopped cultivation in his body actually showed a smooth appearance. This surprised him and was both surprised and happy. Could it be that this place is the secret of Shadow Blade? Just as he was about to explore further, a low voice suddenly came from the direction of the palace, as if something was awakened. Then, a blurry image appeared in the air. It was an old man in a black robe with a haggard face and a deep and purplish look, emitting a creepy breath. "Boy, who are you? Why can you wake up the Shadow Blade?" The old man's voice was sandy and low, like a ghost crawling out of the ground. Every word made Lin Jing feel nervous. "My name is Lin Jing. This Dharma treasure is my natal Dharma treasure. Why did you wake up?" Lin Jing strongly decorated the shattered shadow blade, holding the broken shadow blade, and preparing for sudden situations at any time. The old man smiled coldly, his eyes as if he could see through his soul. "Benshita Dharma? Humph, Shadow Blade is not something you can control. It is the key to the secret realm of the cave heaven and the guide to the forbidden land of the immortal Dharma. Boy, since you are here, don't want to leave easily." Forbidden land of immortal Dharma? Lin Jing was shocked. He heard the name mentioned by the master. He said it was the most dangerous place in the Jiuxiao realm. It sealed the power of the world, and even the powerful people in the baby stage of the Yuan dynasty dared not approach it. Why did he get involved with the Shadow Blade? Before he could think about it, the old man's image suddenly snatched his hand and an invisible pressure rushed towards him. Lin Jing only felt that his chest was slapped and he almost vomited blood. He gritted his teeth and urged the broken Shadow Blade to activate. The light on the short blade was so bright that it even put a force on it. "Interesting, you can actually resist my will." The old man's eyes flashed with a slight snorted coldly, "But this is just the beginning. The fate of the Shadow Blade is far from this. If you want to survive, come and find me, I'll wait for you in the forbidden place of the immortal magic." After saying this, the old man's image gradually dissipated, but the pressure never dissipated for a long time. Lin Qing half-kneeled on the ground, gasping heavily, and a group of his brains formed. Forbidden place for immortal magic? Destiny? What's going on here? At this moment, the light of the shadow blade suddenly darkened, and at the same time his body was wrapped in a force, his eyes turned black, and he returned to the stone platform in the valley again. He looked down and saw that the shadow blade had returned to its original broken shape, as if everything had been just a dream. But Lin Jing knew that this was definitely not a dream. Because there was an unfamiliar force in his body, like a curse, surrounding the Dantian, making his spiritual power extremely difficult. And there is a vague memory in the brain about the arrival of Shadow Blade and the secrets of the forbidden land of the immortal magic. He sat on the stone platform and had never returned to his god for a long time. The scores of the trial and the honor of the sect are now becoming irrelevant. He felt intimidated that he had been rolled into a far beyond imagination vortex, and the starting point of all this was the shadow blade in his hand. Lin Jing, are you fucking here? A crisp sound suddenly broke the silence. Lin Jing looked up and saw a woman in a long lilac dress standing at the entrance of the valley. Her long hair was light and her eyebrows were curious. The woman's name is Yunruoshi. She is a famous casual cultivator in the sect. She comes alone on weekdays and hears that she has studied the secret realm of the cave heaven. Lin Jing is not familiar with her, but she has seen several times and knows that she is not the kind of person who likes to be meticulous. I'm not busy, I'm just going to have a break. Lin Jing replied casually, got up, patted the dust on his body, and prepared to leave this place. He is now full of experience, but he is not in the mood to chat with others. Yunruoshi didn't plan to let him go so far. She walked closer, her eyes swept over the runes on the stone platform, and a strange look flashed in her eyes. This place is not an ordinary place to try. Have you just touched some method? Lin Jing's heart skipped a beat, and his face was as if nothing had happened. How to use it? There is no way to use it. I just passed by and took a look. Is that right? Yunruoshi looked at him with a smile and knocked his chin with his fingers. Then how can the magic treasure in your hand dissipate the breath of the secret realm of the cave heaven? Don't put it in it, I'm very sensitive to this kind of thing. Lin Jing was stunned by her words, and she was a little speechless at the time. Why is this woman so sperm? He hesitated for a moment, but he still didn't plan to hold it out in full. After all, he was so strange that he might not believe it if he said it. Okay, you're a damn bad. He was very proud of his voice, with a little helplessness in his language. But I really have nothing to say. This place is indeed a bit weird, but it has nothing to do with me. If you are interested, study it yourself. Yunruoshi raised her eyebrows, obviously not believing his ghost, but she didn't ask any more, just said lightly, okay, the trial is not over yet, I'll leave first. By the way, Lin Qing, if one day you change your mind and want to find someone to talk about the secret realm of the cave, you can come to me. I promise, you won't regret it. After saying that, she turned away, leaving Lin Jing alone standing next to the stone platform, full of faces. He looked down at the shadow blade, and his heart was filled with scent. What secret is hidden in this magic treasure? What kind of ghost place is the forbidden place of immortal magic? There's also the old man's words that sound like threats or some kind of call. He took a deep breath and decided to put down these messy ideas first. The trial was not over yet. He had to complete the task first, otherwise the face of the clan would be gone. As for the secrets of Shadowblade and the forbidden land of the immortal art, we have to come step by step. Lin Jing held the tight short blade, turned around and walked towards the depths of the secret realm. What he didn't know was that this trial was just the beginning of his destiny, and a more dangerous challenge was approaching quietly. After Lin Jing left the valley, his heart was still in a mess, his brain was filled with the words of the old man in black robe and the sudden burst of the shadow blade. He glanced down at the short blade in his hand, and the broken shape of the blade returned to the body, and the cracks were clearly visible, as if nothing had happened just now. But the strange power like a curse in his dantian reminded him at any time that nothing was illusion. The the spirit in the secret realm was still old and sometimes there were a few roars of monsters coming from far away. Lin Jing forced himself to pull his attention back to the test. He had to complete the task first and get enough points, otherwise he would not even be able to find out the secret of the Shadow Blade. Thinking of this, he took a deep breath, identified the direction, and walked towards a dense forest deep in the secret realm. Based on the test map, there should be many designated spirit grass there. Along the way, he carefully avoided a few low-level demon beasts. Although it was not difficult to deal with these little guys with his mid-stage cultivation of the pill, the curse in his dantian now made him unable to move his power, and he actually didn't want to cause more trouble. After about half a time of leaving, the smoke in the dense forest became heavy, and the view was so low that it was only a few feet away. There was a faint fishy smell in the air, which made people uncomfortable. Why is this place so evil? Lin Jing murmured, holding the broken shadow blade tightly, and his divine consciousness was fully opened, exploring the surrounding static. At this moment, a slight sensation suddenly came from under the foot, like something moving quickly underground. His heart slammed and suddenly flashed toward the side. Almost at the same time, a thick vine emerged from the soil, heading straight for the position he had just stood. "Damn, what's the thing?" Lin Jing said with a low voice. After looking closely, he realized that this vine was not an ordinary plant, but a certain demon plant. It was full of ink and green, and the surface was covered with barbs, which was scattered with poison. He did not dare to neglect, and urged the spirit to pour into the broken shadow blade. A glimmer of light suddenly appeared on the short blade, and with a swipe, he slammed the vine. But this was just the beginning, and then more vines were diamonded out of the surrounding soil, and they rushed towards him like they were alive. Lin Jing gritted his teeth and responded. Although his spirit was not strong enough, his body movements were still flexible. He flicked the left and right, and the shadow blade in his hand kept swinging, and he reluctantly held the first wave of attacks. But he soon discovered that these vines could regenerate quickly after being cut off, and green venom would spray out from their mouths, forcing him to hold his breath. This thing is not finished. Lin Jingzhang's head broke out. The curse in his dantian made his spirit recover very slowly, and he couldn't resist the battle for a long time. Just as he was about to suddenly enter, a cold voice suddenly came from a distance. "Don't fight hard, these are corrupt poison ivy, the core is underground, attack with fire." Lin Jing was stunned, turned his head and found that Yun Ruoshi appeared in the edge of the dense forest at some point, holding a talisman in his hand, and there was a fire leaping on the talisman. Without waiting for Lin Jing to reply, she directly dropped the talisman paper and sniffed it lightly, ran. The tail paper turned into a group of hot fireballs in the air, instantly igniting the vines around it. The demon plants screamed harshly and twisted their bodies wildly, but they were soon burned into a charred black. The fire was still burning the vines into the ground, and there was a deep explosion on the ground, like a core being destroyed, and all the vines instantly shrank and turned into a pile of ashes. Lin Jing gasped, wiped the sweat from the head, and turned to Yun Ruoshi. "Why are you here again? Didn't you say you'll talk after the end of the trial?" Yun Ruoshi hummed lightly, put away the talisman paper, and said lightly, "I didn't plan to save you, I just passed by. But looking at you like a wolf, you should have encountered trouble, right? Tell me, what happened in the valley just now?" Lin Jing rolled his eyes in his heart. This woman was really snatching. He hesitated for a moment, but he still didn't intend to tell the truth. The matter of Shadowblade and the forbidden land of the immortal art was too strange. He just said that he would cause more trouble when he was out. So he heard the sound of his shoulders and said, "It's nothing." He just accidentally touched and developed a small method, and then was sent to a strange place and came back without holding on. Is that right? Yun Ruoshi raised her eyebrows and her eyes fell on the shadow blade in his hand, as if she could see through something. Then why is your magic treasure more and more like the core of the secret realm of Cave Heaven? I'm still honest, maybe I can help you. Lin Jing was a little uncomfortable when she stared at her, but she still said with a stern head, "Help me? Come on, I don't need anything to help. The test is not over yet, I have to find the spirit grass first. If you have nothing to do, don't follow me." After saying that, he turned around and left, intending to leave the woman away. But Yun Ruoshi obviously didn't feel that easy to provoke. She followed a few steps, with a smile in her language. Lin Jing, don't put it on. I have studied the passage of the cave heaven's secret realm for so many years, but others can't see it, but I can't see it. Your magic treasure is probably the key to a certain secret realm, and it's still a marijuana. Lin Jing's heart skipped a beat. Is this woman's straightforwardness too accurate? But he still didn't intend to relax, but just said coldly, what do you think about it? I have nothing to say anyway. Yun Ruoshi saw that he had not yet entered the oil and salt, and did not ask any more questions. He just smiled and said, okay, then I won't ask anymore. But I would like to remind you that things in the secret realm of the cave heaven cannot be touched at will, especially those related to the forbidden area of the immortal Dharma, which is even more taboo. If you really want to solve the secret of this Dharma treasure, you can't rely on yourself. Lin Jing didn't say anything, but a murmur broke out in his heart. This woman seemed to know more than he thought. How could she really help? But he was not sure about her arrival, and always felt that there were many secrets in her, and he was afraid that he would lose his trust. The two of them walked in the dense forest one after another, and neither of them opened their mouths anymore. After a while, Lin Jing finally found a spiritual grass called King Xuanming in the deep forest. It was full of crystals and emitted a faint cold air. He carefully picked it off and was about to prepare to put it in the bag. Yun Ruoshi suddenly said in a low voice, be careful, there is something behind. Lin Jing was shocked suddenly, and his mind swept over in an instant. Sure enough, he found a strong breath approaching more than 10 feet behind him, like some kind of medium-level demon. Without saying anything, he grabbed the spirit grass and flicked to the side, and shouted in a low voice, what's the matter? As the voice fell, a giant wolf with a black body burst out from the smoke, with the red eyes and a fishy saliva dripping from its mouth. It was a black wolf in the late stage of the elixir. This guy was so fast that he rushed to Lin Jing in the blink of an eye. Feng Li's claws rushed straight to his chest with a broken voice. Lin Jing gritted his teeth and urged him to thrust the broken shadow blade. The light on the short blade flashed and he reluctantly slapped the blow, but the huge impact force still made him retreat for a few steps, and his chest was filled with blood. Yun Ruoshi next to him saw the scene, and his fingers moved, and another talisman paper flew out. This time, it was a thunder talisman, which turned into an electric arc and slashed hard on the black wind wolf, forcing it to roar with pain and took a few steps back at once. This guy is not easy to deal with, let's work together. Yun Ruoshi's words were rarely solemn, and he obviously realized the difficulty of this monster. Two of them, one left and one right, cooperated to deal with the black wind wolf. Lin Jing was responsible for attracting attention from the front and relied on his body skills and the shadow blade, while Yun Ruoshi kept firing out various talismans beside him. The fire talisman, thunder talisman and ice talisman were on the side, and the fire talisman, thunder talisman and ice talisman were put on the air, which forced the demon's attack. But this black sty wolf has thick skin and flesh, and the cultivation of the later stage of the pill is not a pity. After several rounds of attacks, both of them were a little overwhelmed. If this continues, my spirit will be almost gone. Lin Jing gritted his teeth, and the curse in his dantian made every time he urged his spirit, it seemed like he was tearing his body, and the pain made him sweat. Yun Ruoshi glanced at him, as if she had seen something, and said in a deep voice, you hold on, I have a way, but it takes some time to prepare. Speaking, she took out an ancient jade token from her bag, which was engraved with complex runes, like some kind of garland. She sealed her hands, muttering words in her mouth, and traces of light lit up on the jade token, forming a small restriction magic square. Lin Jing saw this and gritted her teeth to hold on to the attack of the black wind wolf and fought for her time. After a few breaths, Yun Ruoshi snorted, it's done. Retreat. Lin Jing quickly retreated aside, and saw that the magic ambient suddenly burst out with a strong suction force, trapping the black wind wolf in it. Then, light blades shot out from the magic ambient and pierced the demon's body. The black stying wolf let out a roar, pierced for a few seconds, and finally fell down unwillingly and turned into a corpse. Lin Jingchan let out a breath, wiped his sweat, and turned to Yun Ruoshi. "Your tray is quite awesome, where is it?" Yun Ruoshi put away the jade token and said lightly, "This is my little secret. It's like your baby. There's nothing to say. But this cooperation is still pleasant. Why don't we continue to join forces? I can help you get more points before the trial is over." Lin Jing was moved. Although she was still a little suspicious about her arrival, she had to admit that this woman had two brushes, and it would be possible to save a lot of effort when she worked with the trouble in the trial. He hesitated for a moment and pointed out, "Okay, but I've said that, I'm just trying to cooperate during the period, and let's not mix anything else." Yun Ruoshi smiled and said nothing more. The two men cleaned up the battlefield, took off the inner pill from the Black Wind Wolf, and continued to move towards the deep area of the secret realm. In the next few days, they worked together to solve many monsters and traps, and the balance was still smooth, but Lin Qing's heart was always undermining a stone head, the secret of the Shadow Blade, and the threat of the old man in black robe, as if it would explode at any time. On the last day of the trial, the two of them arrived at a secret cave and said that there was the most precious spiritual grass in the trial, Xiunzi. As long as you get this, your points can be doubled directly and you can enter the top 10 with a steady stream. Lin Jing and Yun Ruoshi both saw the determination in each other's eyes. "This place is not simple, go in and be careful," Yun Ruoshi said softly, holding a few talismans in her hand. Lin Jing pointed a little, held the shadow blade and stepped into the cave first. The cave was dark and wet, and there was a rotten smell in the air. The stone wall under the feet was covered with moss, making people uncomfortable. Not long after leaving, a purple light suddenly lit up in the cave. On the stone platform far away, a purple spirit grass was growing calmly, scattering a heavy spirit, which was Purple Cloud. But before Lin Jing could get excited, he felt a strong breath coming from behind the stone platform, as if some kind of guardian demon was awakened. "Here!" Yun Ruoshi shouted softly, and the talisman in her hand was already ready to be developed. The next moment, a huge stone-armored python emerged from the darkness, covering the hard stone elbows. Its breath was stronger than the previous Black Shan wolf, and it suddenly reached the pill peak. Lin Jing's heart sank. This guy is not easy to deal with. He gritted his teeth and urged the shadow blade to fight hard, but at this moment, the short blade suddenly began to move again, and the cracks on the blade were shining brightly, as if it was being attracted by something. At the same time, the stone-armored python's eyes also fell on the shadow blade, and a low growl sounded, as if he felt a certain threat. "What's going on?" Lin Jing was stunned. Without reacting, the shadow blade suddenly stepped out and turned into a stream of light and headed straight for the stone-armored python. The short blade tear opens a space crack in the air, and a terrifying suction force is transmitted from the crack, instantly swallowing the stone-armored python, and even a cry is not enough to be released. The cave calmed down in an instant, and Lin Jing and Yun Ruoshi were both stunned, and they had not returned to their senses for a long time. The shadow blade rushed back to Lin Jing's hand, and the light on the blade dimmed, but that scene just happened, which made both of them feel creepy. This magic treasure. Yun Ruoshi finally opened his mouth, and there was a shock in his voice. "Lin Jing, what exactly is this? It just broke open. Could it be a space crack?" Lin Jing swallowed, and her heart became a mess. He looked down at the shadow blade, and suddenly flashed the old man in black robe in his brain. Shadow blade is the key to the secret realm of the cave heaven, and also the guide to the forbidden land of the immortal magic. Couldn't you say, the real power of this magic treasure is to tear the space? He did not answer Yun Ruoshi's question, but said in a deep voice, "Get the spirit grass first, try to finish the flower." Although Yun Ruoshi was full of doubts, he did not ask any more questions. The two quickly picked up the purple cloud and left the cave. After the trial, Lin Jingying successfully entered the top 10 with Ziyunji's score, and finally saved her face. But his heart was heavier than at any time. The power of the shadow blade was far beyond his imagination, but in the same way, this power was like a double-blade sword that could retaliate against himself at any time. After returning to the sect, he found the Qing Dianzhenren and repeatedly told him about the experience in the trial, including the strangeness of the shadow blade and the image of the old man in black robe. After listening to the Qing Dianzhenren, his face became unusually solemn. After a long time of silence, he opened his mouth slowly. The arrival of the shadow blade is far more complicated than you think. It is indeed related to the secret realm of the cave heaven, and even, it cannot be separated from the forbidden land of immortal magic. Lin Jing was shocked and asked quickly, "Master, what do you know? Where is the forbidden place of immortal magic? Why does it have anything to do with my Dharma treasure?" The real person Qingdiao sighed, his eyes filled with complexity. "Some things are too early to tell you. But I can remind you that the forbidden land of the immortal magic is the most dangerous forbidden place in the Nine Sky realm. It seals the power of the world and hides the secret of the ancient fairy and demon war. Since the shadow blade is related to it, your path will definitely not be smooth." Speaking of this, he decided to do it and said, "But you don't have to worry too much. The teacher will do his best to help you, but some fate can only be met by yourself. Next, I suggest you leave the sect for a while to find more secret realms in the cave, or maybe you can find the ropes to unlock the broken shadow blade curse." Lin Jing pointed a little, and although there were still many doubts in his heart, he also knew that the master would not harm him. He held the broken shadow blade tightly and made up his mind secretly. No matter what secret this method hidden, he would uncover it step by step. Even if there was a sea of swords and fire in front of him, it would never retreat. A few days later, Lin Qing packed his bags and prepared to leave Qingyun's sect and embark on a journey to find the secret realm of cave heaven. Before leaving, Yun Ruoshi got the news from somewhere, so she came to him again and said with a smile, "Did you hear that you are going to go out of the far side? By chance, I'm planning to explore a few secret realms. Why don't you go together?" Lin Jing looked at her smiling expression and felt helpless, but when she thought of her strength and understanding of the secret realm, she still said, "Okay, but I've said it, I'll just cooperate at a time and don't talk too much about other things." Yun Ruoshi is proud of her shoulders, and she doesn't say anything more. The two of them joined in this way and left the sect and headed towards the wider world of the Jiuxiao realm. What they didn't know was that on this road, not only were there any ambush and crisis in the secret realm of the cave heaven, but also even more terrifying existences, who were secretly lit up the light of the shadow blade. Lin Jing and Yun Ruoshi passed through the vast mountains and rivers of the Jiuxiao realm, and passed through countless dangers, and finally stood in front of the entrance of the forbidden place of the immortal magic. This forbidden area is located in the intersection of the 9 immortal realms, surrounded by endless chaotic fogs, and a suffocating feeling of pressure is suffocating in the air. In the far sky, there is a lightning flash, like some ancient band is moving, warning all the cultivators who are trying to get close to them. Lin Jing looked at the broken shadow blade in his hand with a low head. The cracks on the blade seemed to become more obvious in this fog, and there was a hidden light flowing, as if it was being attracted by some force. In his dantian, the power of the curse began to move, making his spiritual power difficult to move, and a dense cold sweat broke out on his head. This place is indeed not simple. Yun Ruoshi stood beside him, her eyes swept over the surrounding chaotic atmosphere, and there was a bit of solemnity in her language. She held an ancient jade token in her hand, with runes engraved on it, like a magic weapon to break the ban. Over the years, she helped Lin Jing to unravel many groups of the secret realm of the cave heaven, but the forbidden place of immortal magic in front of her is a forbidden place that she has never touched. "Are you sure you want to go in?" She turned to Lin Jing, her eyes flashing with a flash of hesitation. "I have heard too many stories here, and no one who came in can come out alive. Even if you have a shadow blade, you may not be able to deal with the crisis inside." Lin Jing smiled bitterly and tightened the short blade. "What can I do if I don't go in? This curse of breaking the magic treasure is almost forcing me to get rid of. If I practice to stop the purge, my power will almost stop moving. If I don't understand the secret, I will have to be wiped out long ago. And..." He put it on, his eyes calmed down. "Ancestor Xuanming is still waiting for me. This fateful decisive battle cannot be avoided." Yun Ruoshi finished listening and was silent for a moment, and finally said, Okay, since you have said this, I won't hold it down. But I'll say it, let's take care of each other after going in, and don't show off one person. Lin Jing nodded and said nothing more. He took a deep breath and urged the broken shadow blade to activate the short blade. The light shone brightly on it, and the blade swayed and tore open a small space crack. A strong suction force is transmitted from the crack, like an entrance to another world. The two of them glanced at each other and stepped into the crack at the same time, and their figure was swallowed by the darkness in an instant. When they opened their eyes again, they were already standing in a completely unfamiliar world. There are no sun, moon and stars here, only the shattered stone platform floating in the air. You can see a huge black stone sacrificial fair, radiating a vast magical atmosphere. There is a breath of decay and death in the air, which makes people feel nervous. This is the forbidden place of immortal magic. Lin Jing murmured in a low voice, holding the shadow blade's hand tightened slightly. He could feel that every inch of space here was filled with danger, and even the shadow blade was moving lightly, as if he felt something familiar. Yun Ruoshi looked around, then said in a low voice, "Be careful, the restrictions here are more complex than I thought. Those stone platforms should be part of a certain schema, so don't be irritated." As she said, she took out a few talismans from her bag and used her hand to release them. The talismans turned into several rays of light, flying around, like small flames exploring the way. But before the light was still flying far away, the black stone sacrifice suddenly came with a deep sound of slut, as if some sleeping existence was awakened. Then, a cold and sandy sound spread across the space. "Boy, you finally came. I waited for 1,000 years, and finally waited until the owner of Shadow Blade was delivered to the door." Lin Jing was shocked. He was so familiar with this sound that he saw the old man in black robe in the secret realm of Cave Heaven that year, the ancestor Xuanming. He gritted his teeth and raised his head toward the fort. He saw a group of scattered black fogs condensed and formed, turning into a thin figure in a black robe. His eyes were as deep as a purplish, emitting a creepy breath. Ancestor Xuanming. Lin Jing said this name in a low voice, and the power in his body began to move involuntarily. Although the curse caused him to suffer, he knew that there was no way to avoid the conflict at this moment. Yun Ruoshi stood beside him, her face became unusually solemn, and she said in a low voice, "The breath of this guy is more terrifying than what he said. Lin Jing, are you sure you can handle it? If you can't pay, you have to pay." Lin Jing gritted his teeth, then looked at the ancestor Xuanming and said in a deep voice, "Old guy, you said that Shadow Blade was the key to the forbidden land of the immortal magic. Now that I'm here, what do you want to fuck? Tell me, don't stumble." The ancestor Xuanming let out a low sneer, and the body under the black robe moved slightly, as if he had heard something ridiculous. "Speak straight? Okay, boy, I will tell you. The Shadow Blade is not only a key, but also a core fragment of the secret realm of the Cave Heaven. Its power is enough to tear apart the seal of the Nine Sky Realm, and release the power of the world that was suppressed by the ancient immortals and demons during the battle. And you?" His eyes were locked on Lin Jing, carrying agreed, "You are the host of this magic treasure. Only your blood can truly awaken its full power." Lin Jing's heart sank when he heard it. The warning from the real person Qingdiao in the Sea of Brain was that the forbidden land of the immortal magic sealed the power of the world, and the Shadow Blade could not be separated from the broken Shadow Blade. He lowered his head and looked at the short blade in his hand. The light on the blade became even more dazzling at this moment, as if he was really responding to the words of the ancestor Xuanming. "My blood." Lin Jing gritted his teeth, with a burst of anger in his language. "Do you want to use me as a sacrifice? Old man, let's dream." The ancestor Xuanming snorted coldly and raised his hand to sniff. The darkness around him instantly began to storm into countless black touches and rushed towards Lin Jing and Yun Ruoshi. Those touching hands radiate the depressed demon, and only when they get close, they make people feel the pain of being invaded by their souls. "Be careful." Yun Ruoshi shouted softly, and the jade plaque in her hand shone brightly, forming a light curtain, barely holding back the first wave of attacks. She gritted her teeth and said, "This guy's magic is so strong. My ban won't last long. You have to find a way to fight back. Lin Jing clicked the head and urged the broken shadow blade to activate. The light burst out on the short blade, tearing a small space crack open, and trying to swallow the touch hands in. But the ancestor Xuanming just sneered and held his palm lightly. The touching hands directly penetrated the crack and continued to snatch Lin Jing. Boy, your shadow blade has not yet fully awakened. What should I fight with me? The voice of the ancestor Xuanming mocked him. Then his figure suddenly disappeared, and the next moment he appeared in front of Lin Jing, with his thin palm heading straight to his chest. Lin Jing's pupils shrank, and he almost instinctively raised the shadow blade grid, but the huge impact force still made him fly out, hitting hard on the stone platform behind him, and a silk of blood overflowed from the corner of his mouth. The curse in the dantian exploded violently at this moment, causing him to almost no longer be able to move. Lin Jing. Yun Ruoshi saw this and quickly unleashed a few thunder talismans, turning into arcs and slashing at the ancestor Xuanming, but these attacks could not tell him that they were terrible, and even the black robe could not tear a corner. Why can you dare to interfere with me? Xuanming's ancestor snorted coldly, and with a blow, a magic air turned into a huge wave, slapped Yun Ruoshi directly. Her body fell heavily to the ground, her face turned pale, and she obviously suffered uneven injuries. Lin Jing looked at this scene, and there was a flash of anger in his eyes. He gritted his teeth and pulled up, held the broken shadow blade tightly, and growled, "Honey guy, do you want to use my blood to wake up the power of the world? Then try it, is I so easy to grasp?" As he said, he bit his tongue hard and sprayed his blood on the shadow blade. The short blade burst out with unprecedented light as it touched the blood. The cracks on the blade actually began to swell. At the same time, a powerful force stormed out of the magic treasure and poured into Lin Jing's body. The power of the curse was suppressed at this moment, and his cultivation began to climb wildly, directly breaking through the middle stage of the elixir, and impeding towards the elixir peak. This is... A sudden shock came to an eye in the eyes of the ancestor Xuanming, and then he sneered, "No, the shadow blade really recognizes you. However, this power is not something you can control. Waking up with force will only make you fall faster." Lin Jing ignored him, and the power inside him made him feel unprecedentedly powerful. He whispered, and the light shone brightly on the shadow blade, tearing open a huge space crack. The suction force transmitted from the crack was stronger than ever before, and even the stone tables around were sucked into it and turned into fragments. When the ancestor Xuanming saw this, he finally put away his light expression. His black robe shook, and his magical aura stormed out of his body, turning into a huge demonic shadow, fighting against the power of the shadow blade. The two forces collided in mid-air, and the entire forbidden area of the immortal magic began to shake violently, as if it would collapse at any time. Lin Jing tied his teeth tightly and used all his strength to urge the shadow blade to activate, but he could feel that although the power of this magic treasure was powerful, it was also crazily devouring his life. His face became whiter and whiter, and the spirit inside his body was almost drained, and even his mind became blurred. "Lin Jing, don't be snatched." Yun Ruoshi got up with a slight anxiety in her voice. "You can't completely capture the power of the shadow blade. If this continues, you will die." "I know." Lin Jing gasped and smiled bitterly, "But if you don't do this, the Nine Sky Realm will be over. If the ancestor Xuanming releases the power of the world, no one can survive." Speaking of this, he suddenly turned his head and looked at Yun Ruoshi, with a low voice, "Ruoshi, help me. If I can't hold on, help me take away the shadow blade, don't let it fall into other people's hands again." Yun Ruoshi was stunned, with a complicated look flashing in her eyes, but finally she pointed, "Okay, I'll promise you." Lin Jing saw her face, and a flash of light flashed in her eyes. He took a deep breath, and the last piece of spiritual force in his body poured into the shadow blade. The light on the short blade reached its top at this moment. The tearing space crack instantly expanded, completely swallowing the demonic shadow of the Xuanming ancestor. "No!" Xuanming's ancestor roared unwillingly, and his figure was torn apart by the endless darkness in the crack, turning into a long black air, and dissipated completely. But at the same time, the power of the shadow blade also retaliated back. Lin Qing's body shook violently, and blood kept overflowing from the corners of her mouth. She was half kneeling on the ground, almost unable to move. Lin Jing! Yun Ruoxi rushed to him and tried to support him, but his body became weaker and weaker, as if it would dissipate at any time. Don't worry about me. Lin Qing panted heavily and reluctantly smiled. I have used the power of the shadow blade. I have used it as much as possible. The seal of the forbidden land of the immortal magic should be able to hold it for another period of time. You, go quickly. Yun Ruoxi bit her lower lip tightly, and her eyes were filled with unwillingness, but she knew that Lin Jing's condition was powerless to turn the world. She hesitated for a moment, finally took the shadow blade from his hand, and said in a low voice, I will keep it secret and will also let your name pass on. Lin Jing pointed at the head and his eyes gradually dispersed. He lowered his head and looked at his hands, as if he had seen some long-lasting memory, and his lips slightly sang, Master. I didn't disappoint you, right? Before he finished speaking, his body suddenly turned into light spots, dissipating in the darkness of the forbidden land of the immortal magic. At the same time, the shadow blade burst out with a dazzling light in Yun Ruoxi's hand, turning into a stream of light, breaking through the seal of the forbidden land, and disappearing into the vast world of the Nine Sky Realm. Yun Ruoxi looked at this scene and had never returned to her senses for a long time. She clenched her fists tightly, turned around and walked out of the forbidden area, with a sudden determination in her eyes. Although the seal of the forbidden land of the immortal magic was stable, she knew that the crisis between this world was not over. The whereabouts of the shadow blade, and the ambition left by Lin Jing all need someone to protect it. At this moment, the spirit of the Nine Sky Realms seemed to have recovered some balance. Innumerable immortals looked up at the sky and felt the storm calm. What they didn't know was that behind all this was the vengeance of a young immortal cultivator. And his story will also turn into a passage as time passes, spreading on every land in the Nine Sky Realm.